Hello, folks. Let's go and take a look at API.ai. What is API.ai? API.ai is a cloud-based service provider which allows you to create a conversational user experience with your application. For example, if someone wanted to know, hey, what's the top sales in a particular city or country, or which is the city which has top sales in my business, you don't need to know what report you need to go search for. You would just ask your application through API.ai as to, hey, can you tell me which is the top city, where I have some top sales, and maybe even give me the figure. So let's go ahead and take a look at API.ai, and we'll start off with a very simple example, which is something where you go and ask API.ai, tell me the weather in a particular city. So weather in uh, Sunnyvale, right? You go and ask, hey, tell me the weather in Sunnyvale, and it'll supposed to come back and give you the response. I'm using Slack here, and I'll talk a bit about that too. Let's go right in and take a look at how to do this. We'll get started with a very simple example, which is available with API.ai. They have very good documentation also, and in fact, they had a video on it. It's just a little outdated with a different user interface. But sign up and initial usage and all that is free. So I'm going to sign in with my Google account. We start off with what is called an agent. An agent is something which you would create uh, to develop a conversational user interface with your application, right? I mean, be it a web interface or a bot or whatnot. In this case, we'll go ahead and create our first agent, and it is for what is called the weather app. So it's weather agent. What this agent will do is, you can talk to this agent and ask, hey, give me the weather in a particular city, and it's supposed to give you that weather. Now, there are two things that are mainly important when you start off. One is what is called an intent, and the second thing is called an entity. An intent is an example of a dialogue that a user would ask, or a question that a user would ask. For example, give me the weather, or what is the weather in a particular city. Second thing is what is called entity. For our example, we do not need to create an entity because our entity is city, and API.ai already has an entity by the name city, which we can use for our agent. And there are a couple of intents that are already there when you create a new agent. One is a default welcome intent, which is supposed to be what API.ai is supposed to greet a user with when a user talks to it. For example, the user comes and says hello. It says, sorry, I didn't get that. Do I see that here? No, because you know uh, it went to what is called the default fallback intent, which is this one here. It said, sorry, I didn't get that. Or if I say, how are you, it's still not going to work, and it's going to say I missed that. It's so basically going to pick up one of these. Now, if you did want to create a default welcome intent, you should go ahead and say, how are you over here, and then save that, and give a couple of more examples. Hello, or you want to just be a little informal and say howdy. So when a user talks to API.ai and says, how are you, it's gonna respond and say hi. And it fell to what is called the default welcome intent, because we provided these sample user questions to API.ai. It's also supposed to recognize how are you doing today. It might or might not. Let's see. Well, there it worked. So, based on these three inputs, when you went and told it, how are you doing today, it understood that it's supposed to respond with a welcome, intent, and or a welcome response. And that's what it did. Now, there's something called default fallback intent also. So if you say something to the application through api.ai, and basically if api.ai does not understand what you're saying, it will go back to the default fallback intent and to respond with one of these options. It will randomly pick one of these and respond to the user, so that way it looks more natural, right, as to someone's talking to the end user. Now, as I said, we want to create a application wherein you can go ask an end user can go ask for the weather in a particular city. So first thing we do is we do what is called create an intent. What's the intent name? I am gonna call it weather intent, and I'm gonna save it. And over here we are supposed to give an example of what we think is the user is going to ask the system. So let's assume the user is going to ask, how is the weather, oh come on, weather in Sunnyvale, and save that. Or basically you enter, so that gets added as one of the user expressions. By default, api.ai already caught the word Sunnyvale and recognized it as what is called a GeoCity entity. So that's one of the entities that's already available in api.ai. And you could add a response here called the weather sure looks great. And now when the user comes and asks, how is the weather in Palo Alto? It says the weather sure looks great. By the way, you saw that I spelled it wrong. It was still able to catch it. It says the weather sure looks great, and it came to know that the intent was weather intent. Now, what if the user asks, give me weather in Sunnyvale? Did it get that? The weather sure looks great. It got it. Now, there is not a lot of intelligence here, right? Now, what we wanted to do is, when a user asks this question, we wanted to go against the Yahoo Weather API, which is available for anyone to use, and pass on the city to that API, get a response from the Yahoo Weather API, and bring it back here. Now, here is what will get passed to the Yahoo Weather API. This JSON file, right? This is what will get passed to the Yahoo Weather API. Not exactly this. You don't call the API directly from here, but you have to call your application, which will then convert this into a query which the Yahoo Weather API can understand, and then it will give you a response. So let's go ahead and do that. API.ai already has given the code on how you need to do that. So let's just do this. API.ai Yahoo Weather example. The code is written in Python. You don't necessarily need to know Python to execute this. But anyways, Python's a great language. It's easy to learn. I didn't know it 1 year back. Okay, so this is the example. It's on GitHub. You go there and you need to deploy this to Heroku. What's Heroku? Heroku is basically a cloud-based provider, just like Google Cloud or Microsoft Azure. I believe they're not as big as them, but still they are very popular among developers, I believe. All you need to do is say deploy on Heroku. Of course, you would need to create a Heroku account. Again, that's free. Application name. Give your application a name. It's optional, but I would say you want to give it a name. And if you don't give it a name, it will give it a name on its own. You just need to make sure that you know what that name is. I'm going to call it Ganatra Weather, and I'm just going to say deploy. So the app got successfully deployed. You could click on view here. Actually, you should, just to get the URL. You're not going to see anything. And in this particular example, just type webhook over here, and it's going to say method not allowed, which is expected because it's a post method that gets called, and you can't directly call it from the URL here. But anyways, this tells you that uh, something's available out there, a post method. Uh, let's keep this guy in mind. Just going to copy that. Now what you need to do here is when a user asks a question about the weather, you are supposed to call your webhook, basically the API that you just deployed on Heroku. What that application or that API does is it in turn goes and makes a call to Yahoo Weather API, and here it is. So basically your end user talks to api.ai, and the api.ai interface makes a call to the webhook that you just deployed on Roku. Did I spell it right? I believe so. Which internally makes a call to the Yahoo Weather API to get information on the weather and passes it back to your webhook, which passes it back to api.ai and back to the end user. So where do you make a call to this application or to the Heroku application that you just deployed? As I said, copy this URL, go down here, go to fulfillment. Fulfillment is basically if you want api.ai to call some application for fulfillment of the service request. So I'm just going to enable that, enter the URL that we copied, and I'm going to save it here. Now after that, there's one other thing that I need to go. I need to go to intent here and go back to the weather intent and action name. It's very important that I give it an action name, otherwise it would not work. And your action name has to be api.ai weather app example. The action name exactly has to match what is in the code here, which is what was the action name? Yahoo Weather Forecast. It has to be exactly this name. Cannot be another name unless you go change the code, of course. So I'm going to say action name Yahoo Weather Forecast and save that. And now we're going to go ask here, how is the weather in Sunnyvale? And well, it actually said the weather sure looks great. It did not give me the weather. What happened? One other step that I missed. I need to go down to fulfillment here and say use webhook and save. Let's try again. How was the weather in Sunnyvale? There, today in Sunnyvale, rain, the temperature is 55 degrees Fahrenheit. And yeah, how, let me ask another question. Weather in Palo Alto, 54, it's raining there too. What else? What if someone asks something like weather in and doesn't provide a city name? See, api.ai responds by saying, I missed that. What did you say it again? So it basically cannot give you a weather unless you give it the location. In that case, what you could do is over here you could say this field is required and save it. So this time when I say weather in, it's going to come back and say it's supposed to actually come back and ask me what city. So I've saved it a couple of times. How is the weather in what geo city? So I say Sunnyvale, and now it's going to give me that. Or how is the weather in, again it'll come back and ask what geo city. I say Alto. You could of course define a few prompts here if you wanted, saying which city, mate, which place, right, and then say close. So this time if I go and say how is the weather in, it's gonna say, wait, did I not save it? Okay, let me save it. then I say, how was the weather in? See, which place would you like to know about? And then I'll say London. Oh, cloudy in London too. Uh, but yeah, that's if you want to make the prompt mandatory. And these text responses would get ignored. And I think if for some reason uh, it's not able to reach the webhook, for example, let's say if my webhook was down, I'm just gonna put a double K here, and let's say it's not able to reach the webhook, it's down or whatever. Now this time when I say how is the weather in, it'll still ask me for the city, right? Which place? And then I'll say Sunnyvale, but it won't be able to give me an answer. It just says the weather sure looks great. It just takes the answer from here. The weather sure looks great. It did figure out that the intent was weather intent, but let's say if I did not have a text response here and I save it and then say, how is the weather in Sunnyvale? It'll probably go back to but it still went to the weather intent. Yes, it was able to find out the intent. It just didn't know, no clue what to say. It just didn't know what to respond with because I had no text response. Hopefully this gives you some idea on what API.ai is. I know this is a very basic example. In my next tutorial, I'm going to try and show another example which will show you how to do this. The same thing, right? Weather in Sunnyvale. Oh, basically what I've done here, one other thing, I've integrated this with Slack, which is again I believe you could call it a corporate messaging system. The integration is very easy. You just go to integrations here and switch this guy on, and then say test in Slack. You don't need to go online right away. You could just say test in Slack. You need to create an account at slack.com. Again, that's free too, and you can start playing around with your bot, which is what I have done here. One other thing that I have done here is, which I'll hopefully talk about in my next video, is Google has provided some data from IRS, which is gather financial information about non-profit exempt organizations. And if I go to the database here, so here is a look at what they have in the IRS database. Let's preview the data here. Basically, it has this particular table has names and cities of I mean name and addresses of various non-profit organizations, and I believe the other tables have the returns of filed by each of these organizations from the year 2012 to 15 or so. And what I could do here is I've just referred to this table for now. I wanted to find out, say I wanted to find out you know I'm just giving you one example, say how many organizations are there in a particular city. So I go back here and ask how many orgs in Sunnyvale, and it's supposed to come back and give me the answer. The number of orgs is 538, or and then I say how about Palo Alto. Palo Alto has 853 apps, and I have also actually, this has the weather example also. So I say weather, how about the weather there? I mean, it's no way related, the weather and number of organizations, but I was just saying, they're both related to the same entity, which is city, and you know, this is what happens here. The query, if I go to my query history, you'll see all the queries that I just fired. For example, if I had to go here and say how many orgs in I don't know, Los Altos, right? And it's gonna come back and give me the answer 350. But if I just refresh this page here, and there should be a query for Los Altos here. There you go. This is my query on Los Altos, and I just say open query, and I'm going to run this query. Actually, the number is here, 350. The answer is here, right? Uh, so that was an example of how you could talk to your application. In this case, your application is Python webhook, which in turn is reaching out to the Yahoo Weather API, the example that I showed you, or in this particular example, it reaches out to Yahoo Weather API or to your database, in this case, in this example, the Google BigQuery database. Uh, but yeah, stay tuned if you like to see the next one. Hopefully, this was helpful. Actually, I was about to stop, but one other quick word here. In the intents, you probably want to give more than one example. I mean, at least a few different ways in which you think your user might talk. For example, even though I have given just one question and I say whether in Palo Alto, it will, well, why did it not get it? Whether in Palo, that was I did not get this, no clue what to say. Well, sometimes it does seem to work, but that's where the natural language processing is supposed to be applied, where I don't necessarily have to say the exact sentence. How about the weather in Palo Alto? Please come back. There are people watching, actually. Let's see. That's because I have given it the wrong name. Just to save this guy here and try again. Weather in Palo Alto. It worked. So you see, even though I have not given the exact sentence here, that's where the natural language processing gets applied, and it uses a combination of rule-based and machine learning training techniques to match your question. For example, if I say Palo, no, not here. Over here, if I go and say Palo Alto weather, does it get that? So it doesn't get that. So you want to, if you think your user is going to ask like that, then you want to give some example with that style. Palo Alto weather, right? I save that, and now if it says, if you say Sunnyvale weather, didn't get it. For some reason, it did not assign it or catch it as the GeoCity, and say GeoCity. Just this guy, but I wanted to take the entire guy, the entire name, not just the second word. As the weather, save it here and say Palo Alto weather, and today not, and then Sunnyvale weather. And there came back with that weather. So yeah, that would you need to give a few examples in your context within your intent, so that there are a few variations at least, depending on what the user might say, and Api.ai will do the rest to match it up. So hope this was helpful. Thank you very much for watching, folks.